Ever since we started telling stories, mythical creatures have fascinated and terrified humans with their unnatural physiology and deadly power. While it's impossible to prove they ever existed, the lack of solid evidence doesn't mean they never did. After all, history has a habit of turning reality into legend. Now, you might be thinking, if they were real, why don't we have clear proof? Well, what if we do? What if the creatures we've written off as myths were just misidentified, lost to time, or even still lurking in the shadows today? As we're about to find out, some of these legendary beings may not be so mythical after all. So, let's dive into the world of cryptozoology and explore 15 legendary creatures that may actually exist, or at least once did. Number 15. Kraken. The Kraken is probably the most fearsome sea monster ever imagined. According to old sailors' tales, it was a monstrous octopus-like beast with a nasty habit of dragging ships and their unfortunate crews down to a watery grave. Some stories claim the Kraken used its massive tentacles to crush ships, while others insist it created deadly whirlpools to sink them when brute force wasn't enough. So, is the Kraken real? Well, surprisingly, it is real. But it's not exactly the ship-smashing horror legend made it out to be. The so-called Kraken is actually the giant squid, an undeniably huge creature, though nowhere near as violent as old seafarers claimed. There's no evidence it has ever attacked a ship, let alone sunk one. The giant squid made the leap from myth to reality when remains washed up in Denmark in 1853. Even today, it remains an elusive deep-sea mystery, rarely seen alive. What we do know? It can grow up to 18 meters, has the largest eyes of any creature on Earth, and often battles sperm whales, leaving deep scars on their skin. Number 14. Sea serpent. The sea serpent is another terrifying creature from legend, described as a massive snake-like beast that prowled the ocean, terrifying sailors. It was said to be a monstrous hybrid of fish and snake, lurking just below the surface, waiting to strike. Like many myths, the sea serpent is real, just not as deadly as sailors claimed. The creature behind the legend is the oarfish, a deep-sea fish that looks exactly like a fish-snake hybrid. But that's where the similarities end. The oarfish is completely harmless. Despite its terrifying appearance, it's a slow-moving filter feeder, eating only krill and small marine life. However, it grows up to 30 feet long, making it the longest bony fish in existence. Because it lives deep underwater, humans rarely see it. When one washes ashore, it's easy to understand why ancient sailors mistook it for a monster. The first official record of the oarfish came in 1772, long after sea serpent stories had spread. Number 13. Dragons. Dragons are probably the most famous mythical creatures in history. Their descriptions vary, but the most common depiction is of a reptilian beast with sharp claws, bat-like wings, and, of course, the ability to breathe fire. But here's the question. Why do so many unrelated cultures describe dragons so similarly? Because the real dragons weren't mythical at all. They lived across the world in different forms, and long after they vanished, their remains turned into fossils. Ancient people uncovered these fossils and, without the knowledge of prehistoric life, built stories around them. Some were massive, others smaller. Some had claws, others had wings. The one thing they never had? Fire-breathing abilities. Today, we call these creatures dinosaurs. The dragon legends, particularly in China, where tales of dragons are deeply ingrained in culture, were likely inspired by the discovery of dinosaur fossils. In a way, dragons weren't imagined out of thin air. They were a distorted memory of creatures that once ruled the earth. Number 12. Puakai. Maori folklore tells of a massive bird with a terrifying habit, swooping down, snatching humans, and carrying them off to be eaten. They called it the Puakai, which means old glutton. Sounds like just another legend, right? Well, as taxidermist Frederick Richardson Fuller discovered in 1871, this bird was very real. The Haast's eagle, as we now know it, was the largest eagle to have ever existed. Its wings stretched 3 meters, and it primarily hunted moa, giant flightless birds that weighed between 100 and 250 kilograms. Compared to a moa, a human would have been easy prey. Since the Haast's eagle lived long before humans arrived in New Zealand, it's possible that when settlers first landed, the bird mistook them for moa, especially if they were wearing feathered clothing. Or maybe it just saw an easy meal and didn't care. Either way, if the stories are true, early humans in New Zealand had a serious problem flying overhead. Number 11. Roc. If the Haast's eagle sounds terrifying, the roc was something else entirely. Imagine a bird so massive it could lift an elephant off the ground. That's what ancient sailors claimed to have seen on an island just off the coast of Africa. The real bird behind the myth, the aepyornis, also known as the elephant bird. It was the largest bird to ever exist, standing over 10 feet tall and weighing nearly half a ton. Like the roc, it lived in Madagascar, just off the African coast. But here's where the myth falls apart. The aepyornis was flightless. It wasn't swooping down and carrying off elephants, or anything else for that matter. And besides, there were no elephants in Madagascar to begin with. Still, the bird was around when stories of the roc first appeared 900 years ago, and it survived until the 1500s before going extinct. The likely culprit? Humans, who either hunted it to extinction or destroyed its habitat. Humans are pretty much humans. Number 10. Unicorns. The unicorn is a legendary horse with a single horn on its head. But were they ever real? Well, yes, but they were not what you think. Unicorns weren't horses at all. They were more likely rhinos, specifically the Siberian unicorn. Like the mythical unicorn, this prehistoric creature had a large single horn in the middle of its head. But unlike the fairy tale version, it was massive, powerful, and far from graceful. The Siberian unicorn weighed around 4 tons, nothing like the delicate, magical creatures we imagine. It roamed Eurasia until it went extinct about 39,000 years ago, meaning early humans may have actually seen it. Luckily for them, the Siberian unicorn was a herbivore, preferring shrubs over human flesh. However, much like modern rhinos, it was likely aggressive and wouldn't have hesitated to charge at anything that got too close. If early humans encountered it, it's easy to see how its legend evolved into something a little more magical. Number 9. Griffins. The griffin is one of mythology's most famous hybrid creatures. According to legend, it had the head, wings, and front legs of an eagle, combined with the body, tail, and hind legs of a lion. Oh, and it could fly. If it were real, it would have been a predator no one wanted to mess with. But here's the thing. Griffins did exist, just not the way we imagined them. They were actually inspired by Protoceratops, a dinosaur that lived long before humans appeared. Like the griffin, Protoceratops walked on 4 legs and had a sharp beak, but it didn't have wings. So where did the winged part come from? Back when people had no idea dinosaurs existed, they assumed anything with a beak had to be some kind of bird. Plus, Protoceratops had large shoulder blades that could easily be mistaken for wings. It's no surprise that when ancient people stumbled upon its fossils, they saw a creature that perfectly fit the description of a griffin. Number 8. Yeti. For centuries, the people of Nepal and China have spoken of a large, hairy, 6-foot-tall creature that roams the Himalayas. The Yeti remained a mystery until 1921, when British explorers climbing Mount Everest claimed to have found its footprints. The locals called it Meto Kangmi, meaning man-bear snowman. But journalist Henry Newman mistranslated Meto as filthy, and thinking filthy didn't sound dramatic enough, he changed it to abominable. That's how the Yeti became the abominable snowman. But if we go back to its original meaning, the answer is obvious. The Yeti is not a lost species or a supernatural beast, but a bear. Specifically, the Himalayan brown and black bears, both of which live in the snow-covered mountains where the Yeti is said to exist. Over time, DNA analysis has proven that hair, fur, skin, and bones attributed to Yetis actually belong to these bears. The Yeti legend is simply a case of mistaken identity. Number 7. Gorillae. Somewhere between the 5th and 6th centuries BC, an explorer from Carthage named Hanno the Navigator set sail along the coast of West Africa. There, he reported encountering a tribe of hairy, aggressive creatures, mostly male, with females he described as hairy women. He called them gorillae. Hanno's party attempted to chase the creatures, but the males fled quickly, climbing cliffs and hurling stones at their pursuers. The females were slower, and Hanno's men managed to capture 3, but the creatures fought back so violently that the explorers had to kill and skin them instead. Hanno took their skins back to Carthage, but after that, the creatures vanished into folklore. It wasn't until 1847 that a missionary named T.S. Savage rediscovered them. Only this time, people realized they weren't some unknown tribe. They were great apes. More specifically, the species we now call gorillas. Savage named them troglodytes gorilla, in reference to Hanno's discovery. Over time, the name was simplified to gorilla, and the creature that once existed only in legend became a recognized species. However, there's still some debate. Some believe that Hanno didn't actually encounter gorillas, but another unknown species of ape. What do you think? Well, let us know. Number 6. Mermaids. Tales of mermaids, the half-human, half-fish beings that dwell in the ocean, have been a staple of sailor folklore for centuries. But as exaggerated as these stories may be, mermaids do exist, just not in the way you'd expect. Even Christopher Columbus claimed to have spotted 3 during his first voyage to America. However, he noted they were not as beautiful as legend described, with some masculine features. Strange, considering mermaids are almost always depicted as female, right? That's because the real mermaids are actually manatees and dugongs, their close relatives. Known as sea cows, these gentle aquatic herbivores have surprising human-like traits. They can turn their heads, have finger-like bones in their flippers, and stand upright in shallow waters. Combined with their large size, around 6 feet, and fish-like tails, it's easy to see why exhausted sailors, after months at sea, mistook them for mythical mermaids. Number 5. Dobharchu. The Dobharchu, often called the Irish waterhound, is a legendary creature in Irish folklore, described as a giant, ferocious, otter-like beast. The name comes from the Irish words dobhar, water, and chu, hound, emphasizing its connection to both land and water. Legends describe the Dobharchu as a relentless predator, capable of attacking humans and animals alike. It was said to be larger and stronger than a typical otter, with razor-sharp claws and an unbreakable grip. Some stories even claim it had magical abilities, including shape-shifting and incredible speed. While mythical in nature, some believe the Dobharchu was inspired by real creatures, possibly an undiscovered giant otter species or an oversized, aggressive otter that once roamed Ireland's rivers and lakes. Sightings of strange water creatures have persisted over the years, keeping the legend alive. Though the Dobharchu is now part of folklore, its terrifying reputation still lingers in Irish storytelling, making it one of Ireland's most feared mythical beasts. Number 4. Nine-tailed fox. The nine-tailed fox is a legendary creature found in Chinese, Korean, and Japanese mythology, known for its supernatural intelligence and shape-shifting abilities. In different cultures, it is called kitsune, Japan, gumiho, Korea, and Juweihu, China. The fox is said to grow additional tails as it becomes more powerful, with 9 tails representing ultimate wisdom and strength. It is often depicted as a beautiful, seductive woman, capable of manipulating humans, controlling fire, and even predicting the future. In Chinese and Korean mythology, the 9-tailed fox is mostly portrayed as dangerous and deceptive, luring men to their doom by disguising itself as an alluring woman. However, in Japanese folklore, kitsune can be either benevolent or mischievous, sometimes acting as loyal companions to the god Inari. Today, the 9-tailed fox remains a popular figure in anime, manga, and video games, symbolizing both mystical power and trickery. Number 3. Bunyip. The bunyip, a mysterious creature from Australian Aboriginal folklore, is said to lurk in swamps, rivers, and waterholes. Early descriptions portray it as a large, dark-furred beast with a dog-like head and a thundering roar. Some stories give it horns, tusks, or fins, while others mention a long neck or tail. The first written account of the bunyip comes from George French Angus in 1847, who documented indigenous stories about the creature. Some researchers believe the bunyip may have been inspired by the Diprotodon, a prehistoric wombat-like marsupial that lived 40,000 years ago. European settlers embraced the myth, and sightings were reported in the 19th and early 20th centuries. While many were likely misidentified seals or large fish, the bunyip remains a cultural icon, representing the mysteries of the Australian wilderness. Number 2. El Chupacabra. El Chupacabra is a legendary cryptid, feared for its attacks on livestock, especially goats, earning it the name goat sucker. First reported in Puerto Rico in the 1990s, the creature is described as reptilian, about the size of a small bear, with spines down its back and sharp teeth. The legend spread quickly, with sightings reported across Latin America and the United States. Eyewitness accounts vary. Some describe it as a lizard-like creature, while others claim it resembles a hairless dog. Many attacks blamed on El Chupacabra were later attributed to wild dogs or coyotes with mange. Despite no concrete evidence, theories persist. Some claim it's an undiscovered species, a genetic experiment, or even extraterrestrial. The Chupacabra remains a modern cryptid icon, appearing in pop culture and folklore worldwide. Number 1. Direwolves. Direwolves, known from Game of Thrones, are fictional creatures resembling oversized wolves with formidable strength and intelligence. Native to Westeros' northern wilderness, they symbolize the Stark family's connection to the wild north. The story begins when a litter of 6 direwolf pups is discovered, each adopted by a Stark child. These animals form deep bonds with their human companions, becoming both protectors and symbols of the Stark's resilience. Direwolves are inspired by the real dire wolf, Canis dirus, an extinct species that roamed North America during the Ice Age. While the real dire wolves were not as massive as their fictional counterparts, they were larger and more powerful than modern wolves, known for their ability to hunt large prey. If you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you soon.